Welcome to Wine Soundtrack Canada. Listen to the passion with which producers narrate their winery and their world. In 30 Answers, discover their stories, personalities, and passions.
Hello, friends and listeners of Wine Soundtrack Canada. This is Christine Campbell, and I am your host. And today, I am most excited to be sitting with my good friend, Mark Hopley from Hester Creek Estate Winery. Welcome, Mark, and can you please tell me a little bit about Hester Creek?
Sure. Thanks, Christine. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. What a nice day. Okay, beautiful. So Hester Creek is a winery in the Okanagan Valley. We're in the south end of the Okanagan Valley on the Golden Mile Bench. We've got a 115-acre estate. We've got two 10-acre parcels off-site, and then we have contract growers that we purchase grapes from. But we're situated on the Golden Mile Bench, the first sub-GI, as you know, in the Okanagan, and we're pretty fortunate to be able to grow some grapes on some soil that's ideal. We lose the sun fairly early so we get the morning sun, which is awesome, so it still stays cool. Frost kind of flows off the property to the valley bottom, so it's a real Mediterranean kind of site, and we're fortunate enough to have some vines that were planted by the original owner of the property back in '68. So, you know, as a winemaker, great tools to work with, and just really fortunate to be at Hester Creek.
And 1968 for British Columbia, we would consider that an old vine vineyard, would we not?
Yeah, 68. There's not many older than that for sure. And there's a few other vineyards, I believe, that were in a similar kind of time frame. But yeah, so the original owner, his name was Joe Busnardo, and he came out from Italy. And so he brought out some Trebbiano cuttings, some Italian clone Merlot cuttings that we're fortunate to have. So we've been kind of just fortunate to have that fruit to work with, right?
And it is such a beautiful site. I really enjoyed driving around the vineyards with you a couple years ago.
Right. That was fun.
How many cases a year do you produce at Hester Creek?
We're about 50,000 9-liter cases. Yeah.
And what type of wine typically is Hester Creek known for in the market?
I would say probably a lot of your listeners would be familiar with our Pinot Gris. It's a wine that we make about 7,000 cases of, so it's readily available across the province through the liquor board and select liquor stores. We're also known for Trebbiano, but we have about 23, 24 different products now, so it's a diverse portfolio. We hopefully have something that you will find that you enjoy, a cross-section of wines from white to red to rosé, and even sparkling and Prosecco style that we call Tiamo.
And you also have a late harvest, do you not?
Actually, we did.
Oh, no!
Yeah, update. We're actually, do you want to hear a funny story, Christine, on that?
Yes.
So we did a late harvest Pinot Blanc, which is from the original block from block 4, so that's a 1968 planted. So basically we stopped making it. The minute we stopped making it, it won double platinum at the National Wine Awards, and then we couldn't keep it in stock, and now it's not a wine we're planning on making moving forward. And I will tell you that Pinot Blanc is such a big part of our portfolio. We make our sparkling base from it, we make a Pinot Blanc from it, we make a small lot Pinot Bianco, which is barrel fermented. So it's something that has a big place in our portfolio, but we're not doing the late harvest actually anymore. So if you see some out there, snap it up, because it won platinum recently at a good level, and I'll tell you what, it was selling quickly.
Can I share something with you? I actually have a bottle in my fridge.
Really?
I do.
I love it.
So what would you consider your markets? What are your top markets? Is it a British Columbia market? Are you able to distribute across Canada or internationally at all?
The bulk of our customers are located within the province. So, 90+% would be in British Columbia, but we also do do some sales through Black Stallion in Alberta too. So you will see us in Alberta as well. But Western Canada is what I would say, but primarily focused on British Columbia.
And what is your first memory relevant to wine, Mark?
Probably knocking over a glass around the kitchen table when I was maybe 8 or 9.
Great answer.
No joke.
Okay, so that's kind of an interesting childhood thing. What is the first or most memorable wine you recall ever drinking? And if you can remember that, what was the occasion?
It was just a random Tuesday night. No, I have no clue what day it was. I will tell you, my favorite wine I've ever had. I mean, we're doing a lot of great things in the Okanagan, but I love Cab Sauv. And I had a Cabernet Sauvignon from Margaret River. It was a 2004, and it was my holy grail of wine. I just loved the style the winemaker had made it in. I'm trying to think of the name of the winery. It's escaping my brain right now. I'll come up with it. So come back to me on that. But it was a 2004 Cab Sauv from Margaret River in Australia.
Okay, we're going to come back to that. I know we can. We'll figure it out. So what do you think about traveling the world abroad? What is the best foreign wine you have ever enjoyed? Is it the same one?
Anvers Crescent is the name I was looking for. That was the name of the winery. It was just phenomenal. I love wines that stay on the palate and just don't stop finishing. Does that make sense? So, and that's what we always look to do when we do our blends. What stays with you? So in my mind, it's that acid, sugar, sweetness balance, whether it's white, whatever the wine is. If it's well balanced, it's like a great meal. It stays with you, and it just fills your mouth, and it's something that is memorable. And it's when you find it, you know it. And honestly, I'm always looking, and hopefully we're going to make some of those wines at Hester Creek.
I have zero doubt that you will, because you're a very, very, very talented winemaker. I'm a fan. So what would you say, amongst all populations in the world, what country do you think drinks the best in regards to quality wine continually?
You know what? You probably have to go to France or Italy for that, I would think. And I would say that only because it's so embedded in the culture. There's wines that you don't see everywhere that are amazing. That never make it to market, right? And that's the challenge, I think, with a lot of wines. It's a lot of it. The good wines are usually on a fairly small scale, right? So when you get your hands on them, you want to keep them, you want to cellar them, and that's a challenge, because making that scalable, and that's kind of a big thing that I would like to do in my career path is make wines that are approachable, very pleasurable, but also on a decent scale that you can find, right?
Finding those is incredible. Yeah, and that's what we want. We all want to have those wines, but be able to go and get it over and over again. Right. So what wine in your cellar at Hester Creek right now is giving you the most satisfaction?
I would tell you that the 17 Garland is one of my faves. I would also tell you the 19 Syrah. We do a co-ferment with a small amount of Viognier, and the 19 Syrah is tasty. Actually, we're tasting it at the show today. And we're getting some good comments on that, some good feedback.
Do you believe in such thing as a perfect variety?
No. I think it's funny. Like there's a variety for every occasion. There's a type of wine. If it's winter and you're sitting by a fireplace, you're looking for a red. If it's summer, you're on the patio, you're starting off a meal. Usually, it's a white. There's no recipe. Winemaking is not it's farming. So it's. Usually smaller scale, lower production years, you get better quality. But I'm a big believer in the vintage, like year to year. I will tell you that last year, 21 was an amazing year. 20, we've had 2 back-to-back very good years. Now the quantity was very low, but full phenolic ripeness, but not too hot. If you get too hot, sometimes you can have some challenges too. Those wines tend to get jammy and maybe not age as well. Like for me, personally, I like to see a nice balance of acid and sugar in the fruit. So maybe not too hot, not too alcoholic. You want to try to keep those alcohols not crazy high, but everything in balance. That's kind of the rule, Christine, right?
What is your opinion of wine critics and wine scores? Take me out of the picture.
Wow, we're going there. You know what? You can't offend me. Like if that's what you taste, scores are relative. It's like not everyone has the same scale, I would say. So some writers, if you get a 90, they love it. Some, if you get an 89, they didn't like it. So sometimes you have to know who's writing, and if you're familiar with that writer, and you don't get too disappointed or too thrilled with a high or a low score. Most wines you see are usually scored between say 85 and 94. That seems to be kind of the sweet spot. When I see a 99 or a 96, I'm probably going to go buy it because something good must be going on. But I also think we need to be careful not to give crazy high scores, because if you give them off the charts, then there's nothing to strive for, right? So I look at it as the holy grail. I'm always looking for that perfect year, that perfect vintage, that wine that is aged just perfectly, which it really is hard to find. And there's no number can define that. When you taste it. Like that Anvers Crested wine I was telling you about. I loved it. It was amazing. I went and bought every single bottle I could until they sold out of it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So as a consumer, you yourself, do you tend to go for whites, reds, or rosés? What would be your go-to if you had to choose one?
I rarely buy white, just being honest. I'm a red. I like to savor the red. I just do. And it's probably going to be Cabernet Sauvignon based blend, like a Bordeaux style. But I do love Syrah. I love GSMs too. So it's, you know what? I can't pick one. I appreciate a really good Pinot Noir. Hard to find. That's a tough question. That's a loaded question. But I'm usually a Bordeaux guy. I like that style, and usually bigger, something that'll age.
And there are no wrong answers here. So I'm going to go out on a limb and suggest that you are more of a still wine drinker than sparkling.
No, actually,
Ooh.
I would tell you that sparkling, in my house, that sparkling doesn't last very long, so I have to be careful with that. My wife's a big fan of sparkling. But, I love traditional method wines, and I do appreciate a nice Prosecco style also. I just find that my palate likes dry, so, a classic kind of traditional champagne style is always good.
So are you going to reach for champagne, or are you going to reach for a traditional Brut from British Columbia, or a Lambrusco, or a Franciacorta? What are you going to reach for, a Cremant?
So my history, I used to work at Sumac Ridge, and we had Stellar's J there. I think BC does sparkling amazingly well. Look, I love champagne. It's going to be fairly pricey. It depends on what the pocketbook can afford on any given day. But sometimes I do find, full disclosure, you go get a wine that's famous and it's all that. And is it worth $110, $120, $200? You got to find that value for you. There's no right answer on that. But I will say, for me, I think pound for pound, BC sparklings are amazing. Like, OCP makes some great ones. I'm proud of what we're doing at Hester Creek. Sumac Ridge does a good one. Summerhill's been doing it for a long time. There's a lot of great BC bubble. It seems like everybody kind of jumped into that, and I think it's something we can be proud of, and I think do really well.
Okay, so we might have had that extra one glass of sparkling traditional method BC wine, maybe two. You wake up in the morning, you're not feeling so great. What is your hangover cure? Do you have one? And please share with the listeners, because we're always looking for some insight.
I have a few.
Oh!
Well, Advil's good. I don't know if we're promoting any of that, but I will tell you, you know what? I was in Chile and Argentina, and they introduced me to something called Floralite. It's basically similar to Gatorade. It's like a Gatorade Powerade. Something like that is good. Get those electrolytes back. You know what? Honestly, for me, the older I get, it's not always the wine. It's the lack of sleep, right? I could have no wine and no sleep and still feel like that. So, it's just an observation. But I would say I was talking to my pouring partner today at the table, and he said, "What about a Caesar? A morning Caesar?" I'm like, well, that's another approach. but I would say get those electrolytes up, Powerade, Gatorade, something like that.
For any non-Canadian listeners, a Caesar is a Canadian Bloody Mary. It's clamato juice and vodka and celery salt, Worcestershire and Tabasco.
Spicy.
Spicy. It is like a meal. Yeah. It's a meal for sure. What does a non-drinker lose out on by not tasting your wine?
I look at wine as food. Like, it's part of what we do. It's part of our culture. So, and that's where it came from, right? So look to the old world European countries that have been, having a glass of red with Sunday dinner, having a glass of, it's part of the meal. It makes the meal more enjoyable, in my opinion. And I think that the thing I love about it, Christine, is you never stop learning. Doesn't matter how much you know. Doesn't matter how much you know a region. You can have a new vintage that throws something at you you've never seen before. You can try a new variety you've never had before. You can try something that's made a little differently, and be open to that learning, because it never stops. And to me, that's what I love about this industry.
Okay, so talking about learning, you see space aliens that have just landed in your vineyard. I know, you've got to teach them. You've got to introduce them to something from Hester Creek. What is it that you are going to offer them to give them a taste of your terroir?
Trebbiano. I think it would be Trebbiano, because I think that's distinct. So Trebbiano, for those that don't know, this Italian clone of Trebbiano that we have that came over from Italy in the late 60s. It's the same grape that's in Uni Blanc, so they make cognac from it. The thing is, these vines that we have are super old, so they don't hang a lot of fruit, so it gets a lot of varietal flavor. Those gnarly vines, less fruit, more energy in the fruit, more flavors. And for me, that would be probably where I would start. I haven't met any aliens yet, but that's what I would recommend.
It's always one of those questions that sometimes send people for a loop, but it's kind of fun. Do you have any specific good luck rituals for when harvest is about to start?
We always do a good cheer on the first bin. I have on occasion poured sparkling over. We've done that. I've worked at a few wineries over the years. We used to have that. There's always the harvest beard, it's like the playoff beard for you hockey fans. You may or may not shave for a while. My good buddy that works at Mondavi dyes his hair purple when he starts harvest. So yeah, there's lots of things we can do. Those are some of the things that I know a lot of my friends do.
I've learned that some producers walk in the cellars and speak to the wine in the barrels. Do you do that, or do you speak to the vines in the vineyard? And if so, what is it that you are talking to? What are you saying to them?
My old boss once told me, do you want to be a winemaker, or do you want to lie in the vineyard and stare at the sky? I don't do a lot of singing. I don't have a good singing voice. I would tell you that I do believe in positive, this will sound a little woo-woo, but positive energy. So music in the cellar, I think, is a good thing. It's especially when it's, and you know what, it could be classical, it could be jazz, it could be even classic rock, it could be anything. But I think music in the cellar is important. We have that pretty much all the time.
Okay, I'm going to get back to that because it is the Wine Soundtrack Canada. So we're going to talk about music a little later in the interview. When you were little, what did you want to be when you grew up? A
guitar player. Yeah. Well, who didn't, right? 90s metal, that would have been my thing. Now I love country music now. My musical tastes are all over the map. But I just appreciate the fact now, the last 2 years, there's so many good artists sitting on material. It's all going to come to fruition at once. So there's going to be some amazing music. I know you love the hip. I mean, that's a Canadiana thing, right? They're awesome. There's so much good music. But I was kind of weaned on harder rock, just being perfectly honest. I've kind of mellowed a little over time, but not that much.
Okay, so when you're not working, how do you spend your free time? Are you playing guitar? Oh, I have a feeling I know what you do, but the listeners don't know.
Yeah, so I actually have a podcast on fly fishing. So I spend a lot of time fly fishing. It's something that I love. Again, like the wine industry, you never stop learning. There's so much to know, whether it's entomology, whether it's, tying flies, whether it's reading water, casting. It makes you pay attention to the little things, and it hones your observation skills. So for me, you notice that insect on the rock, you notice those sandhill cranes flying overhead. Tells you the season's changing. I'm driving to a lake and I'm seeing these balsam root sunflowers. I know the chironomids are hatching. I see the Saskatoon berries. I know the mayflies are hatching. It's part of the cycle of nature, and for me, that's kind of cool.
And fly fishing is a sport, is it not?
In my mind, it's not. I've heard it called a sport, and it's a competitive sport. I got friends that are on the Canadian national team. I will tell you that it's a pastime. At some point, it's in your DNA. Is it a sport? I think it's more of a pastime. It's more of a lifestyle, if that makes sense.
It totally does. Okay, I'm going to switch it up a bit. Who is your favorite singer or musical group, either historically or currently?
Well, I shouldn't admit this, but I do have a tattoo of the Bon Jovi tour bus on my shoulder. So I was growing up. Bon Jovi started hitting the scene. I was huge into them. But you know what? I love Eric Church. I love Kenny Chesney. I love I love Coldplay. I'm all over the map. I like a little bit of everything.
That's okay. That's what music is, right? A little bit of everything. Do you have a favorite film that is dedicated to wine, or do you have a favorite film that you can't stand that is dedicated to wine?
I like Bottle Shock. I like that movie a lot. There's one that the name's escaping me. It's like A Year in...
A Year in Champagne?
No, they're in France, and it was...
A Year in Provence?
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Who was in that? You remember?
Yes. He's an Australian actor.
Russell Crowe?
That's it.
Yeah, that was a good movie.
That's the one.
Yeah. But I did like Bottle Shock. Got some good laughs out of that.
So for a very romantic evening with your wife, what wine would you order at a restaurant to start the evening?
That would probably be the Hester Creek Old Vine Brut 2018.
Perfect. I love that one. Are you a supporter of any sports teams?
Yes. I'm a bit avid, actually, with Denver Broncos. And what else? Vancouver Canucks. I have to think about that, but those are the two teams that see, they're already laughing at us. Yeah, those are Calgary Flames fans. No, but the Vancouver Canucks and Denver Broncos are my two teams.
And if your team won the big game, what bottle would you give them to celebrate with?
It'd be red. I mean, it would be probably... Oh, that's a loaded question. Are we talking local? Are we talking international? Anything?
Whatever you want.
Yeah, you know what? It'd probably be a Cab Sauv from BC. Maybe ours. Could be. There's other good ones out there. There's a lot of good ones, right? I think Cab does really well in the Oliver Suze area. So for me, you know what I always think, and this might sound kind of weird, the coolest area that you can reach phenolic ripeness, for me, you always get the most intense flavors. So think about why these people are doing higher elevation Cab Francs in Argentina. They're pushing the envelope. They're ripening. So I believe personally that the cooler regions produce more intensely flavored wines, and I think that's really evident with white wines. And in my mind, it makes sense because it takes a lot of energy for those grapes to kind of fully ripen, and I think the flavors are more intense.
Beautiful answer. I'm looking for another answer, and that is, what is the best piece of advice you have ever received?
The worst hangovers come from the second location.
What? What does that even mean?
I got a few quotes. What is you know what? I've got quotes written on me. Extend inclusion. That's a good one. I like that one a lot. Prefer to be nothing else. In other words, you're just fine how you are. Because we all struggle from time to time, but it's all good.
Hey, okay. You heard that here first. Wine Soundtrack listeners. Okay, Mark, what is your proudest achievement in your work currently?
Oh, I was going to say my two daughters, but that's in my work. Actually, you know what? I'm just proud to be where I'm at. I feel really fortunate. Like, career's a funny thing. Like, I worked in radio for a lot of years. I've had different incarnations. The wine thing has been the longest one. I managed a fly shop, like a hunting, fishing, hockey store. So I was in retail, but I started in sales. I know this is a long answer to a short question, but I will tell you that I think just day to day, I love working. For me, it's teamwork. I don't care. I could do anything as long as I'm surrounded by a good team, good people. I know we have that where I'm at Hester Creek, and to me, that you go into work, you spend so much time of your life in your workplace, you might as well enjoy it, right?
I could not agree more. Absolutely. Because without a good team, then
it's everything. It's everything. And we have a really deep team. I mean, if you start looking around, like our vineyard manager's been there for Iqbal Gill. I think he's been there like 26 years. Marie-Christine Hebrard, our lab manager, she's been there 16 years. Peter Baer, our component coordinator, he's been there 14 years, something like that. It's those long-term employees. And in this environment, that retainment of employees is huge. And I think when you look around and you see a winery that people stick around at, maybe you're on the right track.
Well, that totally speaks to the culture of Hester Creek and your reputation for going above and beyond for the team that all works there.
Yeah, thank you. I think, and that starts to me the minute you walk in the door. My philosophy on that is touch points. If a truck driver comes in and say a shipper's having a bad day, that's a touch point. That's the brand of Hester Creek. That's the brand of whatever you're promoting. So it's important that every experience, that person comes in the winery, they come in the front door, they feel like they're at home. And for me, that's Hester Creek in a glass. When I walk in that front door, it's a very comfortable feeling.
Mark, can you please complete this sentence for me? A table without wine is like
wood. It's well, it is. I mean, it obviously needs wine on the table, depending on what you're eating.
Amen. What sort of wines do you think are going to be enjoyed in 2300?
Are the aliens here? You know what? That's a great question. I think, well, wines that probably age the best. So again, we're getting back to those either champagne-style wines, sparkling, ages very well, or, those either a big Tuscan-style wine or Bordeaux style.
Do you think we're going to be drinking wine still on Earth in 2,000 years from now?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I know you and I won't be, but somebody will be.
I like the lack of hesitation. Absolutely. Okay, I'd like you to name three wines that you would take with you to either a deserted island or into outer space, whatever your fantasy place is. It can be 3 grape varieties or 3 specific wines. What would be your 3 go-tos?
Well, that's easy. I'd want a really good dessert wine. I'd want a really fruit bomb white wine, and then I'd want a big red. So I would say, for me, I'd start off with a white. It's got to be something like a. I do love Chardonnay, and I know it ages well. How about a Riesling? Let's go with a Riesling. That might go on my island. One that can age really well. Lots of fruit, not too much RS. So fairly acidic. And then I would say with the red, again, I keep coming back to Bordeaux, but a Bordeaux style, whether it's a mix of Merlot, Cab Sauv, Cab Franc, but I think a little bit of Petit Verdot and Malbec in there would be nice too. And then the dessert wine, well, that would be a Madeira. I love Madeira. It's something that I remember Cedar Creek made a wine called M. And it basically, the story I heard, it was a barrel. It had a barrel of like late harvest or ice wine or something, and it just basically oxidized. And I don't know how true that story is, but that was what a friend of mine that worked there at the time had told me. And I love that oxidation is obviously it's the enemy when you're making wine for the most part, but I will tell you that in late harvest kind of dessert wines, it can be your friend. It just adds layers. And I actually do really enjoy Madeira.
I haven't drank as much as I'd like to, so you've just inspired me to start. What is a winemaking area in the world that you would like to explore?
Margaret River. Yeah, that's on my list for sure. But there's so many good ones. I mean, Napa's beautiful. It's busy, right? I mean, sometimes I like those kind of lesser-known ones, just being perfectly honest. And again, the cooler areas. So I think, that's what I love about the Okanagan. It's cooler. We fully ripen, so there's intense flavors. I think Margaret River's probably in that boat too. It's a slightly cooler part, if there is such a thing in Australia. Yeah.
Okay, Mark, this is the wine soundtrack, so we do have to talk about music in here. It's time where we like to play a little game. I'm going to pick some different wine varieties, and I'd like you to tell me what song you would pair with that wine. And if you don't have the song, then a band. And if you don't want to say a band, you can talk about a genre. So I'm going to start with Cabernet Sauvignon for you.
Well, that's got to be like The Godfather. I see that like the theme from the movie, The Godfather, Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, let's go there.
Let's do Madeira.
That might be Bob Dylan. Something kind of folky, 60s, early 70s. I go Bob Dylan on that.
Okay. I like that answer. And because Trebbiano is one of your, signature varieties, I'm going to say Trebbiano.
Well, that's a tough one. You know what? For me, it's yellow. It's yellow flowers. I got to go Coldplay yellow. It just kind of works with that. I have had this conversation before, so that's not a new thought to me, but it's, for some reason, it works. It works in my brain.
Mark, you've been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for joining us today on the Wine Soundtrack Canada podcast. Can you please remind everyone where we can find your wines? Is your tasting room open? And if so, what are the hours?
We're pretty much open every day throughout the year. The only days we're not open, I believe, is Christmas Day and New Year's Day. And it's usually 10 to 5. It does change a little bit throughout the year. I think right now we're open 10 to 6. And then, of course, there's online. HesterCreek.com is always an easy place to go, and we can get it to you wherever you happen to be. The website is always good, but even better yet, if you're fortunate enough to be in the Valley, come visit us at our house, and we'd love to host you and see you at Hester Creek on the Golden Mile Bench, which I think is one of the prettiest wine regions that I've been to.
Mark, you're an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for being our guest today. Any final words you'd like to say to the listeners of Wine Soundtrack Canada?
Keep searching for that holy grail of wine and let me know what it is, because then I want to buy it. But thanks for doing what you do. I appreciate you having me on the podcast, and it's good to see you on the floor at the show. And I look forward to reading more of your articles and hearing more podcasts. Thanks, Christine.
Thank you, Mark.
Thanks for listening to a new episode of Wine Soundtrack Canada. For details and updates, visit our website, winesoundtrack.com.